Stephen King is a master of horror, but did you know he directed a movie in 1986? Or that he wrote it? Well, would you believe me if I told you it's terrible? The movie is Maximum Overdrive. When I clicked on it and watched it, I couldn't understand how the Stephen King could have made such a boring movie. I decided I would dig into this film and find out what went wrong during production, why it failed, and if there's anything we can learn from it. In order to understand how this movie failed, we first need to know what the plot is. After Earth passes through the tail of a comet, a strange phenomenon occurs. All machines, from trucks to vending machines, suddenly come to life and start attacking people. And it's going to keep happening for the next 8 days. While at a truck stop in North Carolina, a group of diner workers, a few truckers, and a former convict named Bill who works there are forced to stay inside. And these machines aren't just attacking, they're killing people. Multiple people get hit, run over, chainsawed, lawnmowed, and more. There was a kid at a baseball game where his coach tried to buy a soda and got hit so hard with multiple soda cans from a vending machine that he died. And at the rest stop, there's an evil semi-truck with a green goblin mask on the front of the truck as the title card villain. Alright, stop. I think I found the first problem. I'm 20 minutes in and there have been multiple deaths, yet I am still bored. The reason? I think it's the horror. This is supposed to be a horror sci-fi movie, but it's not scary. Now, I scare easily, and the only moment that got me was a cheap trick, a supposedly dead guy grabbing a kid's arm. That's it. So where's the horror? This is Stephen King we're talking about. Well, it's because there's no stakes or tension. Look at this scene. A guy stares down a truck in what's clearly meant to be a Western duel. And Western duels work because they build tension, and every glance and pause cranks it up with all the shot changes, the intentions behind every action. But here, there's no build-up, just an awkward silence and a lack of movement. It's lifeless, and the tone is all over the place. It's technically a horror movie, but feels like a bad mix of horror, action, and unfunny comedy.
Has he really got a lot of firepower down in the cellar? Well, you heard him tell me to shut up, didn't you?
And the villains, the aliens controlling the machines, they're supposed to feel like an unstoppable force, but there's no gravity to them. They come off as super beatable. And the poster child villain, the Green Goblin truck, all over the marketing, it barely does anything. It's like if Darth Vader spent Star Wars filing paperwork instead of fighting Obi-Wan. But as you continue watching the movie, you kind of see the other cracks. The trucks and machines are literally circling around them, but for whatever reason, don't just crash into the building. But anyway, the machines are relentless, and things quickly spiral into chaos, with multiple people getting killed. Meanwhile, the young boy named Deke, whose father was killed by a truck, eventually finds his way to the gas station, as well as a newly married couple. I think I found the second issue. I wasn't sure earlier, but I'm confident now. This entire movie feels plotless and aimless, and that's what makes it incredibly boring. I was 20 minutes in waiting for a story to happen, then I was 40 minutes in, then I was 60 minutes in. There's no story. Nothing feels significant or important because of that. There's no goals. The concept as a basis could have been incredible, but its execution, because of this, missed the mark completely. There's nothing to latch onto, there's nothing to care about, and the characters themselves don't seem to have any objectives. Surviving even feels like an afterthought. Because of this directionlessness, with no compelling plot or character development, the characters just don't grow on you, and there's no emotional pull. The film drags on without a real plot until the last 15 minutes, when it suddenly tries to fix everything. But by that point, it's too late. The lack of direction has sealed the deal for this film, and that deal is that it's forgettable. Nothing in this movie stands out as being important or memorable except some explosions. There's no moments that demand your attention or evoke any emotional response. It never gives you a reason to stay interested, and by the end, you're left wondering why you even bothered watching it. The group eventually realizes that the machines are being controlled by aliens in space, but it was through a guesstimate that happens to be 100% correct with some really weird dialogue. And apparently these machines are part of an invasion plan. In the last 15 minutes of the film, Bill comes up with a plan to escape the truck stop. They'll distract the trucks, travel through the sewers, load up a boat, and escape to an island with no machines. Supposedly this island is 6 miles off the coast of where they are. Their hope is to survive till the comet passes and the machines die. They go through their plan, they manage to do it pretty easily, like with almost no conflict at all, and the film ends with a strange screen text telling the audience that a Russian weather satellite destroyed the UFO in space, and 6 days later, Earth passed through the comet's tail, and the survivors who managed to escape on the boat are left to live in an uncertain world, and then it ends. Now, after watching the entire movie fully, I have most definitely found the third major issue with the movie. The pacing is a huge problem. The scenes drag on, slowing the movie to a crawl, and then there's no sense of urgency or build-up because, like I've said earlier, there's no real plot to build toward. Even when something might happen, it just doesn't. It feels too slow or too fast, and it just doesn't matter. And while visually the movie looks fine, the look of every shot felt so simple but failed because a part of the pacing issue lies in how things were recorded. On a micro level, the lack of action and blocking makes many moments static and forgettable. Characters often stand still, or scenes are framed in ways that don't add anything to create tension or atmosphere. And the ending of this movie is a mess, with pacing that moves quickly but quirks and story points that are super weird. At the very end, there's an unnecessary text-heavy exposition dump, just kind of trying to wrap it all up in a bow, except we already had a somewhat uncertain ending, but we still felt like we knew where it was going. So this over-explanation just feels disconnected and undermines the little uncertainty the movie had left. And listen, I'm not trying to smack down Stephen King. He is a genius author, but I think that's a part of the issue. He's an author, not a screenwriter. I think if he was paired with a real screenwriter who had experience, then the movie could have been way better, but he was left to make the screenplay himself. And while this is all an issue, I think what the real issue was for the production was his cocaine addiction. His addiction fueled a chaotic production with poor decisions and a lack of focus driving the film off course. And there were other production issues, especially when the cinematographer got into an accident with a lawnmower on set, causing major damage to one of his eyes, further delaying the film. The crew also complained that there was a lack of directorial vision and clarity. With all these issues, it's no wonder the movie turned out as chaotic as it did. Even creative giants like King can misstep, and this was his. But through Stephen King's failings, there's an upside. And even though Stephen King sadly failed as a director on this project specifically at this point in time, he's still one of the greatest storytellers of all time, and who knows what he could do now or in 5 years.